Welcome back to Liberal Breakdown. Donald Trump just announced he wants to cut all federal funding from sanctuary cities. Not some, all. And if you think that's just about immigration, think again. This is about power, punishment, and politics. And it's going to hurt millions of people who've done nothing wrong. Sanctuary cities are places that choose not to cooperate with federal immigration authorities in certain ways. They don't hold people longer than the law requires. They don't turn local police into immigration agents. Why? Because public safety depends on trust, and immigrant communities need to be able to report crimes, go to school, or seek help without fear of deportation. But Trump sees that as defiance, so now he's threatening to cut off every single federal dollar these cities rely on, from schools to public housing to hospitals.
President Trump is vowing to withhold all federal funding from sanctuary cities. That certainly would escalate his crackdown on illegal immigration.
Sanctuary cities and states facing a potential loss of billions in federal aid as Homeland Security and ICE ramp up their efforts to enforce immigration laws that are already on the books.
President Trump stating on Truth Social in part, no more sanctuary cities, working on papers to withhold all federal funding for any city or state that allows these death traps to exist.
Well, President Trump is threatening to cut off federal funding to sanctuary cities and states. You know, that could mean untold hundreds of billions of dollars could dry up. Or forgiving illegal immigrants for being in the U.S. could come at a very high cost to jurisdictions that protect them and do not cooperate with federal law enforcement agencies like ICE. The Trump administration could shut down all federal funding to the sanctuary city and states if they do not change their policies.
Let's be clear, this isn't policy, it's blackmail. It's using people's lives as leverage to push an extreme anti-immigration agenda, and just like we saw during his first term, it's probably illegal. Courts already struck this kind of thing down before, but that's never stopped Trump from trying to punish the cities and states that don't fall in line. He called them death traps. He said they protect criminals over victims, but the data says otherwise. Sanctuary cities are not more dangerous. In fact, multiple studies show they're safer. This isn't about safety, it's about control and scapegoating immigrants to score political points. Let's talk about what federal funding actually means. It means school lunches. It means emergency services. It means affordable housing, clean water, public transit, disaster recovery. You're not just punishing mayors, you're punishing working families, kids, seniors, vulnerable communities, all because local officials decided not to become ICE agents. City leaders from places like San Francisco, Chicago, and Boston are already pushing back. Lawsuits are coming. They've been through this before and they know the Constitution is on their side. But even the legal wins can't undo the fear and chaos these threats cause. So when Trump says he wants to make America great again, just remember, he's talking about an America where you get punished for protecting your neighbors. An America where compassion is weakness and cruelty is policy. We've seen this show before, and if we care about human rights, about cities that work for everyone, and about actual public safety, we can't let this become normal.
The mood on Main Street is getting darker and darker. These are historically weak numbers. So the University of Michigan came out this morning and said that consumer sentiment in the United States this month plunged by 11% to the second lowest level since records began back in the 1950s. That's pretty stunning when you think about it. This is lower, weaker sentiment than at any point during the Great Recession. The only time it was worse than right now was 3 years ago, back when Americans were panicking over $5 gas. Of course, today, gas prices are low. The problem is all of these chaotic moves out of Washington, the trade war, and of course, the turmoil on Washington. The internals of this report were ugly. Americans marked down their views on the current situation. They're becoming less optimistic about the future. They're increasingly concerned about unemployment. And this is a number that I think is going to get the attention of officials at the Federal Reserve. Consumers are now bracing for a nearly 7% increase in prices over the next 12 months. That is very high. That's a significant increase from the month before. In fact, that's the highest level since the early 1980s, back during that inflation crisis.
Okay, so we really need to talk about this. Consumer sentiment in the U.S. has just dropped to one of the lowest points in decades, even worse than during the Great Recession. And that should be a huge red flag for everyone, no matter where you land politically. Let me break it down. According to new data from the University of Michigan, consumer sentiment in April has dropped to 50.8. That's lower than where it was during June 2022, and it's part of a 30% plunge since December. Why? Because inflation is back, and it's worse than expected. One-year inflation expectations have shot up to 6.7%. That's the highest since 1981. 5-year expectations, 4.4%. That's not just a number. That means everyday people, working families, students, retirees, are expecting things to get a lot more expensive really soon. When consumers start expecting inflation, economists say that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Companies feel like they can raise prices, and they do. And just like that, we're in a cycle of price hikes, wage pressure, and economic instability. This is serious. Even New York Fed President John Williams is saying the economy might only grow by less than 1% this year. This is exactly the kind of economic instability we saw before the 2008 crash. But here's the difference. Back then, people still trusted that the government might step in and help. Now, after years of deregulation, tax breaks for billionaires, and volatile trade wars, people are losing faith. And let's be honest, this didn't happen in a vacuum. We've got Trump back in the headlines, pushing new tariffs, threatening sanctuary cities, and inflaming global markets. We're seeing the fallout in stock markets, treasury bonds, and now in the confidence of everyday Americans. The economy isn't just numbers, it's how people feel about their futures. And right now, people are scared, they're uncertain, and they're tired of getting gaslit into thinking everything's fine when it's clearly not. The truth is, our economy is supposed to serve people, not punish them. We need leadership that understands that working families, students, retirees, and small business owners aren't just numbers in a spreadsheet. They're the heart of the country.
There's a lot of talk about, from the Doge team or from Elon Musk, about waste, fraud, and abuse and what they're finding. Have you seen much evidence of waste, fraud, and abuse? Because what they put on their wall of receipts, some of the top items, the biggest savings they allege to have implemented, turned out to be mistakes or just lies.
Look, am I going to sit here and tell anybody in America that the United States government doesn't have a bureaucracy and there isn't waste? Of course there is. And do we all, you're Republican, conservative, progressive, I was mayor of the city of Berlin. One of the things I'm proud of is we save money. We made the city more efficient. People pay taxes. They want to make sure their money goes to where it's supposed to go. We can do better than we're doing right now.
Is there a contribution Elon Musk could make to the federal government that you would be?
I think I don't think he can do it. But do I think as a nation, as a Congress, as an administration, we got to sit down and say, how do we break through the bureaucracy and make the government more efficient? Yes. But I want to give you one example. And this worries me a whole lot. Trump gets up in his State of the Union, and many of you have heard it. And he says, oh, my goodness, millions and millions of senior citizens, 150 years age, 200 years of age. Remember that? Oh, they're all getting Social Security benefits. It's a lie.
Senator Bernie Sanders is calling out President Trump's recent claims about Social Security and the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. Sanders isn't holding back, labeling these claims as outrageous lies. During a recent address, President Trump claimed that Social Security checks are being sent to deceased individuals, suggesting widespread fraud within the system. He stated that there are millions of Social Security recipients aged between 100 and 360 years old, a claim that has been widely debunked. Senator Sanders responded swiftly, stating, "That is an outrageous lie intended to lay the groundwork for cuts to Social Security and dismantling the most successful and popular government program in history." He emphasized that over 99% of Social Security checks are going to individuals who have earned them. Social Security is a lifeline for millions of Americans. It's not a program riddled with fraud, as some would have you believe. These claims are not just misleading, they're dangerous. The Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, led by Elon Musk, has been touted as a means to eliminate government waste. However, concerns have been raised about its transparency and legality. Critics argue that Doge operates with unchecked power, potentially undermining established government processes. It's crucial to stay informed and question the narratives presented to us. Programs like Social Security are vital, and we must ensure they're protected from misinformation and unwarranted cuts. Let's hold our leaders accountable and advocate for policies that truly serve the people. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one.